from your home. It's virtual family camp with Starburst, with Moonbeam, with Jerry Dazzlefingers, and musical guest Lauren Scott, and your camp speaker Jill Rainwater. I'm Moonbeam, the majestical, the mystical, the irresistible Silk Savant.
And I'm Starburst, the aura of light, here to fill you with visual delight.
We are here to train in the mental and the physical, right?
Right, but first, the mental.
The brain. It's powerful. Time to center. You!
Hey!
Have the most uncanny sharpness of eyes. Just as my friend an eagle would say. There it is. There it is. Very smart.
And after that, you are more creative than the top TikTok influencers.
Especially the prank ones. You are faster than my nephew and cousin in a wagon.
You.
And going down a hill.
Oh, and you are my best friend.
Okay. I felt that. And together we are radiant.
All right. Now we know your mind is nice and strong. This is a final test. It's going to be a battle against wits. For this one, we call it Ninja Cowboy Bear. It's like rock, paper, scissors, but you're probably wondering, what does what? All right, so your bear. This is your bear. Your bear is going to get your cowboy. Your cowboy, yeehaw, is gonna lasso your ninja, and your ninja, he's gonna sneak up on that bear, all right? So your bear gets your cowboy. Your cowboy gets your ninja, and your ninja gets the bear. Bear, ninja, cowboy. All right.
It's just basic logic.
You can start face to face. We'll do 3, 2, 1, and then you strike your pose. If you want to make it a little bit harder, you stand back to back with the person you're against, and on 3, 2, 1, you jump and turn it into your position. Ooh, looks like Jerry is opting for the harder challenge. We're gonna do the best of 3 in your household. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1, strike your pose.
No.
Oh, if we have a tie, go again real fast, go again real fast. You can do your 3, 2, 1, go! And we have a winner over here. We don't know what's happening in your house. If you need to go one more time real fast, you got it in 3, 2,
the winner.
1. All right, now, everybody, we're going round 2. That was just if you needed tiebreakers there at home, okay? Round 2. Think it through.
Really
You can switch up your partner if you want. Do what you gotta do.
Nope.
All right, are we ready?
Yes.
In 3, 2, 1, strike that pose, strike that pose. All right, we have a winner over here. What's happening at home? If you need a tiebreaker, here comes your countdown. We're moving on after this no matter what. It's 3, 2, 1. How'd you do? Did you get them? They're tied over here. I hope you have a winner at your house. Okay, and this is the final one. With this one, we are taking a live look and a home rant now. All right, let's see it in 3, 2, 1, go ahead. And then in case you had a tie, here we go in 3, 2, 1.
Whoa.
Oh man, we still have a tie, baby. I don't know. Let's see it. And then in 3, 2, 1. There you go. Well done. Excellent, excellent work. It has been great being with you all this weekend. We hope you've had a great time. We know that you are strong in mind, and now you are strong in body.
Yes.
And we'll see you again real soon. Thank you. Goodbye.
And you can't fight the tears that ain't coming, or the moment of truth in your lies. You're the closest to heaven that I'll ever be, and I don't wanna go home right now. And I don't want the world to see me, 'cause I don't think that they'd understand when everything's meant to be broken. I just want you to know who I am. I just want you to know who I am. I just want you to know who I am.
Talk about your jobs and how they've been impacted by COVID-19 and the current pandemic that we're in.
So I'm a PA. I work in orthopedics, specifically orthopedic surgery. So just with all the elective surgeries being canceled, work was a little different for a while. We were only seeing emergency cases. So if you broke a bone, we'd see you. But besides that, we weren't doing anything. So our patient load got very limited. We also still have to wear gowns, goggles, and a mask every patient we see.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we're back up to seeing all of the patients and doing surgeries. And then Chris actually works on a COVID unit.
Yeah, so I work as a nurse, and I just became a nurse practitioner.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah, he graduated 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So I work on like a stroke unit. It's a neurology floor.
Okay.
And then the COVID-19 kind of hit our hospital pretty hard. So we became an overflow COVID unit. So we've kind of become temporarily like partly a respiratory unit with a lot of COVID and COVID rule out patients. So that's been quite a change on the medical side of things. I work inpatient at the hospital. So also like the no families, no visitors. There's a lot of patients and families that are really, kind of just isolated and really wishing they could have family there. So that's been a pretty good barrier, along with the PPE and gowning up and masking up with each patient encounter. So that's impacted us quite a lot.
Did
when he comes home, I have to sanitize him.
Yeah, drop all my stuff in the garage and
yeah. So a lot of what I saw was how crazy things were in New York, and and monitoring that, how, were you guys, you were an overflow unit, so did you see a ton? Did you ever feel overwhelmed as far as what you were?
I think the overwhelming side, it's not almost like, oh my gosh, there's so many patients coming through. It's the overwhelming side. On one side of things is just there's so much uncertainty. And there's never been a pandemic like this in my lifetime and in many people's lifetimes. So just the uncertainty of what we're dealing with, even preparing yourself to go into a COVID room, like, am I fully covered? Going home after your shift, like, oh, am I feeling respiratory symptoms? And I think a lot of people, even out in public, even that aren't necessarily always around COVID patients, get that too. So that's been a pretty overwhelming aspect of it. But we do see quite a few numbers. We've kind of opened up Florida quite a bit, so the numbers are jumping again. And then the uncertainty if it's going to just keep going up, or where are we going to be in 3 months and 6 months, is always kind of tough to think about. But
thank you for what you're doing and putting yourself in harm's way and being frontline essential workers. You're making a difference.
The pandemic, though, at the same time did bring people to realize, like, you can't live selfishly. Like, for example, like, we're younger, most likely we'd probably be okay, but we're living this way for others, and like going back to not being selfish, and kind of like we forgot to thank God for things like being able to see your friends, like, and then at night we were like saying a prayer, we're like, well, thank you for letting us see your friends, like those type of things that you forget, that you take for granted.
For sure.
And then another thing is our church has been doing a lot for the community. So we've been able to, through our church, like you can give, or, you know, and they donated like some iPads to the hospital for people in isolation, those type of things.
Yeah.
And then I know Chris has been praying with some of his patients.
That's
Especially,
awesome.
Yeah.
so that's been neat that he can, when they're still in the isolation, they don't have family or anyone around them, that he can just take that time, a couple of minutes out of his day, and kind of change their day or maybe their week.
Let me pivot to Jill and what she's been talking about in her talks. Jill said that when it comes to the problem of sin, we tend to either try to fix it ourselves, we tend to try to ignore it, or we tend to hide the evidence. In fact, like everything is okay. So when you think about your journey with sin, which of those do you see yourself doing, and where do you see that in your lives?
Yeah, we had kind of discussed that. The one thing, it kind of goes back to all of these questions, like what's been so hard for us, and a lot of these things are just completely selfish. We don't get to see our friends. We don't get to. These are just kind of things that we don't really need. They're not vital. We can get by without them. And so we think selfishness has kind of been something that kind of sticks out to both of us.
So did we ignore it?
Yeah, and I think ignoring it probably was the main thing. You know, we ignored it.
Like not going out into your community and helping like those type of things, like not taking the time to realize that you might have something more than others and stuff like that.
Yeah. Let me ask you, if I could ask a little bit about your mom. First of all, my condolences to you guys losing your mom to cancer. Talk to me about your mom's legacy, how you guys remember her now. Can you share a little bit about that, about your mom?
Yeah. I mean, I'll say a little and then I'll let Tosh say some too if she wants to. But I guess like, you know, while she went through cancer, which was like a year, she was just so strong and just kind of made a point that like she's not going to give up. She's going to teach us that no matter what, that like she's going to put forth like her all, you know, her all. And so I think that we try to remember that in like everything that we're doing, that you know, we're not going to give up. We're going to keep pushing forward in all that we're doing, because that's what mom did, you know, up until the end. But she was a really strong lady, and she influenced a lot of people. And so, I don't know.
I don't know, for me, like me and my mom spent a lot of time, because I played soccer all through growing up, and so that was like me and her thing. She went every weekend, we were like in a different state for my tournaments and stuff, and so that was my favorite part about her. And so just knowing that she was always with me then, I still like to think that she's still with me through like whatever I'm doing, and I try to think about like when I'm doing things, like what she would think about it, or like I still kind of like let her parent me, I guess, in a sense, and like thinking about like how she would take things or how she would handle something, and kind of use that and what I do.
So right, yeah.
Your family also has some underlying health conditions, which I'm sure makes living in this pandemic more challenging. Question, but which of these do you see yourself doing the most, and where do you see it?
This is a hard question. I think for all of us to think about and answer, but I just said, you know, I feel like I try to hide the evidence or fake like everything's okay. Like I tend to put on a happy face when I've done things that are wrong. But as I thought about that, then I was like, well, I guess I'm kind of a combination of all three of those things in a sense. Like I do just pretend that it's all okay, and I try to fix things, you know, without help most of the time. And that's part of my hiding it, is that I try to fix things by my, you know, on my own. I think I forget to lean on God and what he has to offer, and that he can, you know, like help me through it, or, you know, so I think I'm a combination of all three. I think that sin is something that people like shy away from, and it's hard to confront. And, you know, I'm one of those people. And so I think that as much as I try to work on it that I keep to myself about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't necessarily feel like I hide it, but I definitely kind of just try to feel like everything's okay. Like I think not for the most part, but sometimes like I'll notice it and I just kind of, brush it off like, oh, like, I'm seeing I'm doing this, but I'll just be better next time. Like, I just won't do this again. But inevitably, I do the same thing over and over and over again. And I think it's like, even right now, it's just almost easier to do that in a sense because, everything else there's just so much sin going on right now. Like, the world is kind of in a bad place, I feel like. And so it's easier to just kind of be like, brush it off. Like, I'll do better next time. Or like, other people are doing this. Like, it's totally fine, Like, when they get better, I'll make an effort to get better kind of thing. So
comparing ourselves with other
yeah.
people.
Both Whitney and I have MS. And I don't know, you want to take it over?
Yeah, okay. So we both have multiple sclerosis. Dad's had it for about 23 years, and I've had it for just over 2 years. And we're obviously in very different stages. Dad's actually in a wheelchair and has been for a while, so his is a little more advanced than mine is. We were able to catch mine really early, and I like to say, like, I'm thankful that Dad has multiple sclerosis, as much as it sucks, really. But I wouldn't have recognized my symptoms for what they were if if he wasn't already in that position, I guess. So I guess, like, for both of us, it has been challenging. We are technically in the more at-risk group of people during this pandemic. Sorry. And because it is an autoimmune disease. So Dad has a medication that he takes, and our neurologist says that, that does put him at risk, but we found out that the medication that I take, which is an infusion every 6 months, puts me at even more at risk with the pandemic and everything with COVID-19. I actually have an infusion coming up next week, and it is an immune deficient drug. So because of that, I have to self-isolate for 2 weeks after I take it, just being that my immune system will be down and not as strong to fight COVID-19 if I were to come into contact with it. So, I think it's just been tough because, I've tried to live the most normal life that I can. I think we've put Dad more in this isolated box than myself. But just taking the precautions, wearing the face mask and carrying around hand sanitizer, washing the hands, everything that they've suggested, but just being very hyper vigilant about it.
Yeah. You just became a regional director. Talk to us about that transition, the interview process, how it all came about. What was that like for you?
My picture is I want to see a culture happening in every volunteer, part-time staff, full-time staff, committee person in Houston, and I want us to become a family.
Exactly.
And even when we are a family, no, but I'm talking about a family. A family, we're gonna have the freedom as a region to celebrate together, but if we mess up, also to lament together, That's really my heart for this region. I want every person that is part of this team eventually to feel like, whoa, this is what I need, I've been learning so much for every conversation, for everything that happened here.
The banana song. You guys ready?
Yes.
Yeah. Bananas unite. Peel, banana, peel, banana, peel, banana, peel, banana. Slice, banana, slice, banana. Slice, banana, slice, bananas. Mash, bananas, mash, bananas. Mash, bananas, mash, bananas. Eat bananas, eat bananas. Eat bananas.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Here we go. Bananas unite. Peel, banana, peel, banana, peel, banana, peel, banana, slice, banana, slice, banana, slice, banana, slice, banana, mash bananas, mash bananas, mash bananas, mash bananas, eat bananas, eat bananas, eat bananas, eat bananas, go 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 bananas. What time?
Faster, right? Faster, I mean. Here we go.
Bananas unite. Peel, banana, peel, banana, peel, banana, peel, banana, slice, banana, slice, banana, slice, banana, slice, banana, slice, banana, mash banana, eat banana, eat banana, eat banana, eat banana, go, go, bananas, go, bananas, go, bananas, go, go. Thanks for tuning into the Banana Song, you guys. Good job, guys.
The end.
Good job. Good job. So a few weeks ago, I was with some friends, and we were just talking and thinking about how amazing it would be if every single human on the planet, no matter what they looked like, where they were from, what mistakes they'd made, if they truly knew and believed that Jesus has made a place for every single one of us in his heart and in his house. And so we wrote this song together, and the chorus just says, "In your house, you've made room, there's a place for me." And I pray tonight that if you don't know that the Lord shows that to you, that you believe that about your life from here on out, that no matter where you've been, what you've done, what you've seen, that you are radically loved by him, and that he has made a place in his kingdom and in his heart for you. And there's nothing you could do to change that. So this song is called Place for Me. In the beginning, you created all, called it good, good. Then you raised me up from the dust and called it good, good, good. No matter what I've done or seen, no matter who I am, in your house you've made room. There's a place for me. There's a place for me. There is love and there is life. There's a place for me. There's a place for me in your house. Oh, there's a place for you in your house. You've made room. There's a place for me. There's a place for me. And there is love and there is life. There's a place for me. There's a place for me in your house.
I hope your family had a blast exploring Mexico today. I also hope you had a great cabin time and had some time to process what we talked about this morning of getting lost or getting off track. Sometimes we think of this problem of sin as an infraction, a broken rule, but the way Jesus explains it to us through the parable looks more like a fractured relationship. Or maybe it's both at the same time, because any rules God had given us were set up to protect us and to protect the relationship. We also talked about the fact that even a little of getting off track changes our destination and disconnects us from the source of life and love. The moments where we only feel a little off track can actually be the most deceptive and the most dangerous. One of the things many of us have learned from watching COVID-19 spread is that when we can't see how bad something is, that makes it all the more likely to spread and worsen and ultimately could even potentially cause our demise. It's hard to face and hard to believe, especially when it's something invisible and when it starts out seeming so harmless. Many of us have learned the word asymptomatic, right? And maybe you, like me, know someone who caught the virus and didn't realize they had it at first because they were asymptomatic. But then that progressed into pretty predictable symptoms, just like the problem of sin does. And then it got really scary really fast. In particular, many of us here grieve the loss of a former Young Life staffer named Fred Jones. Or maybe you've had others in your midst impacted. It reminds us that what starts out small can turn into a really big deal. And where we left off in my car accident this morning, I had started to realize just that what I'd done wasn't something that was no big deal or could just be ignored. It wasn't something I could fix myself. I was off track, I was in over my head, I was sinking fast, and I couldn't find a way out. Sometimes it can be so hard for us to ask for help, but I realized that was the only path forward. I decided to ask for help from the person I had borrowed the car from, who was my dad. The next time somebody pulled over, I asked to borrow their cell phone, and I tried calling my dad at home. But when I called, nobody picked up the phone. So I even tried calling the neighbor. I said, "There's been an emergency, can you go and get him?" He said, "We're so sorry, Jill, but he's not home." And I start to think at the moment that I need him the most, he's not there, but then I actually see him in another car, turning the corner toward me in the car in the swamp. Apparently, he'd been out looking for me the whole time. As soon as I didn't get home in the timing that I should have, he couldn't sit still, he couldn't rest. He knew something was wrong. He couldn't rest until he found me. So he finds me, and I expect him to be furious because his car is sinking in a swamp and I have caused it. But instead he jumps right in and starts to help. He calls a tow truck. The tow truck driver shows up on the scene, tells us that he has called the police because that was one of their policies, was they had to report accidents, so the police are on their way too. I start sobbing uncontrollably, like you can't even understand the words that I'm saying because I'm so upset. I just can see what's about to happen, that I'm about to lose my license. My choices are about to catch up with me. So my dad actually has me go sit in that other car because I'm of no use to him and the tow truck driver standing there just sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. From that other car, I have a front row seat to watch everything that's happening. They're building a ramp down into the swamp, and they're going to attach this crane thing to try to pull the car back up. The police officer pulls up. I can see him walk over to my dad. They look out, down over the car. They're kind of pointing at it and talking. I see him pull out his ticket pad. He writes out my ticket. He hands it to my dad. My dad puts it in his pocket. The officer actually heads back to his car and takes off at that point. And my dad and the tow truck driver finish getting the car out. After they've done that, the tow truck driver leaves and my dad comes and sits next to me in the car I'm sitting. I'm still crying, but I at least can talk in a way that can be understood right now. And so I say, go ahead, give me the ticket. I know I deserve it. Go ahead and give it to me. And he says, I will, but I have to tell you, your name's not on the ticket. What, Dad? My name is. Wait, what? Dad, the officer wrote your name on the ticket? Yeah. And then I said, and you let him? I'm thinking, how can this be? This makes no sense. My dad says, you see, he only saw me. He didn't see you in the car. And so when he saw me standing there looking over the car, he assumed I had been the one who had driven it in the swamp. And you let him? You took my place? You took my ticket for me? And as I look back, it wasn't because he was like trying to get me out of trouble or anything like that. It was because he couldn't stand to see how badly I was suffering. I was devastated. I was crying. He couldn't stand to see me in pain. And so if there was something he could do, he would do it. I remember thinking, was that even legal? And what's so cool is that Jesus does something even more incredible by taking our place or by taking our ticket, and leaves us wondering, is that even legal? How did he just do that? Why did he just do that? Jesus actually died in our place in a way that makes no sense to us. He traded places with us. When we were headed down this road away from life and love and headed toward death, Jesus offers to swap places with us. As I look back on that moment with my dad, it was so surprising. He had every right to be mad at me. I had messed so much up with my choices and with my actions, but instead he takes my place. He lets the officer give him my consequence. He loved me so much, he didn't think twice about making a sacrifice. He couldn't stand to see me suffer. Just like Jesus, like we talked about this morning, was willing to do anything to come to us. We think we've lost hope, but Jesus says, I could trade places with you. I could take your ticket. He left the throne of heaven, comes down to where we are off track, and even enters our mud and our mess. If we're suffering, he's willing to suffer with us. And though we might not be able to reverse our yesterday, Jesus has the power to reverse our destiny. What if he took our ticket of sin? Could he take our place? Would he take our place? What does it even look like to trade places with us? What does Jesus do exactly? He does the unthinkable. He dies in our place, a death called a crucifixion. Today we aren't going to focus on the details of how that happened, but instead why it happened, that Jesus volunteered for it. He was fully God. He could have sent armies of angels to stop his death at any point. He had done nothing wrong. He was sinless. He wasn't on a path of death, but he didn't. He wanted to take our place, and he wanted to swap from death to life and love so that we could be right with God again. He didn't have armies of angels stop him from dying, and we didn't do anything to deserve it. It was a free gift. He was the only one who could take our place because he was sinless, so we weren't trading places with someone also on the wrong place, and he was the only one who needed to. We couldn't earn our way back to the right place with God, even if we tried. It's unique to Christianity that we don't have to try to manage our sin or earn or prove our way. Other religions might say there are things you have to do, but Jesus says you don't need to because I did. I did everything. I would do anything. I already reversed your destiny. God demonstrates his love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. There's nothing we have to try to do. He didn't wait for us to try to get it right. He knew we couldn't fix it, but that he had the power to do something about it. If that's not a light at the end of the tunnel after all this craziness lately, I'm not sure what is. That someone who had the power to fix brokenness beyond brokenness is going to use their power to do just that. So even though we can't solve the problem of sin ourselves, God can. The person we least expect to step in and help us because we've just run in the other direction from him and blown him off, God himself in the person of Jesus. He does that. I think of the police officers who've chosen to march with protesters this summer and what an image of God that is. He's saying, I'm with you. I'm fighting this problem with you. He's not too important. He's not too busy. He's not too over it. He's not too fragile to handle the fact that he himself might be the one that we are mad at that day. He's thinking about us every moment, and he's leading the way to the solution. He can handle our pain. Let's go back to the parable where Jesus was telling us, where the dad represents God, to make sure that we have that right. Will you keep your eyes and ears on the dad in the story this time? The son says, I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Just make me like one of your employees. Even though he'd fractured, he'd broken the relationship, he comes up with a way to ask for help that he thinks might work. He's going to head home, and he's rehearsing this speech that he can give his father when he sees them. He's ready to give it to him, maybe as he kind of crawls back. He's thinking, what is my dad going to do when he sees him? He makes a long journey, covered in mud, probably covered in pig feces. His clothes are torn and hanging off of him because of all the weight he's lost. And I imagine him in those final moments looking down. He's prepared to beg for forgiveness. But while he's still a long way off, his father sees him and is filled with compassion for him. He runs to his son, he throws his arms around him, and he kisses him. Wait. Plot twist, what just happened? This was so counterculture for a person of power to act in this way, especially a wealthy older man of this culture. They never ran, they never hugged, they never kissed, but his love at that moment was so overwhelming he couldn't contain it. The son is like a deer in the headlights. He starts in on his prepared speech because he doesn't know what else to do. Father, I have sinned against heaven. I've sinned against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the dad cuts him off. He interrupts him. He calls to his employees, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his fingers and sandals on his feet. The robe, the ring, the shoes, those are family attire. The employees aren't wearing that stuff. The dad, by saying this, is saying, welcome back to the family. You are back in. Let's have a barbecue. Let's have a feast and celebrate. Let's go big. For this son of mine was dead and he is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate. And we find the dad standing there holding out his hand, inviting his son into the party. Because God is standing there holding out his hand, inviting us into the party. But we have options just like the son did. He could have said no to the hug and to the party. Why would he do that? Why would anyone ever say no? Because of the myth that we need to deserve it. It's a surprise that the Father is still going to embrace us no matter what we've done. It's just gone from 0 to 60 again, but this time in the direction of good. And that can be startling. The dad's love is extravagant, which means over and above, beyond what we would imagine. Extravagant love. So especially when we think about the heavenly parent the story is representing, for many of us, he's so different than any parent we've ever known or even observed. Who would do what he just did? The son just broke the relationship. He took half the estate that they won't be getting back. And not only did the dad say he's open to being in a relationship with him again, he wants him back as his son, he goes all in and throws a party. I imagine all the neighbors, all the employees, all the friends didn't know what to do and didn't even know what to think. We know in the Bible it says the older son didn't know what to do. It makes no earthly sense to him that the dad would do this so extravagantly, it almost feels wasteful. But this dad is representing God. God of the upside down kingdom, God of love, harmony, and creativity, or creating solutions. And Jesus' choice to die was the ultimate solution to the problem we couldn't solve. So how do we respond to the party waiting for us? Maybe it depends if we think the party invitation is defined by our actions or God's. It's about God, not us. It's not about how good we are, but how loved we are. It doesn't require a bunch of action on our part. God tells us there's only one thing we need to do: believe in the one he sent. So just like the son, what matters for us is the turnaround, not how far we've gone, if we're 2 miles away or 2,000. It's God's extravagant love that matters, not our condition. He's saying there's nothing you've done after all of that that would change my love for you and keep me from running to you. That's why it's safe to accept my embrace, because it won't change. I will always be here for you. He's asking us as he stands outside the party, will this be your turnaround moment? Are you going in? Will this be your celebration moment? Do you want to come in with me? And so as we head into cabin time, we want to give you a chance to consider just that. Imagine tonight Let's put ourselves right in that scene. We are the kid, God is the parent, and the choice is ours. He's not going to put a rope around us and pull us in, but he's crystal clear about the depths of his love. I want to be with you, and I'm running toward you. I've been running toward you the whole time. The question is not what the Father is going to do. We know that. It's what the kid is going to do. It's your move. He's standing in front of us. He's offering us his hand into the party, and the choice is ours. What are we going to do? God's been waiting your whole life to wrap his arms around you and say, welcome home. Do you want to walk into the party? Let me pray for us, and then we'll have some time to discuss this in cabin time so you can share where you are with it, because it's your choice. Lord God, thank you so much for a chance to understand what Jesus has done and what he offers to us. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.